everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be making some cards with these super cute house mouse stamps. These are red rubber stamps, which I love red rubber stamps because you get a level of detail that is just really hard to get with the polymer stamps. I love the polymer stamps for being able to see through and exactly where I'm placing my stamp, but when you want a fine image detail, red rubber is definitely the way to go. And how cute are these little mice? So you've got "You Warm My Heart," "All You Knit Is Love," "Sending Warm Birthday Wishes," and this is the Knit One stamp. And then I also got this one, which is called Snuggle Up. How cute are these little mice? And this is a much bigger image than you would kind of guess. This really does fit like a whole A2 size card. It's like a big central image. So I think sometimes looking at this, you get the sense that this is maybe a small image, but no, this is quite a big image. So we've got "The Snuggle Is Real," "Sending Hugs," and "Miss You." And so how cute are these little guys? So follow along with me. We're going to make some really cool cards. Hopefully cool. Haha, do you get my pun? Some cool, okay, don't mind me. Some cool cards with these stamps. So stick around and let's see what we can make. Now, in making these cards, I knew that even though these are really intended, I think, for one layer cards, because they are such big images, you can see there that is a standard A2 size card that I am actually stamping this on. So it does take up the whole image. My brain just doesn't work that way. My brain immediately sees something like this, and I want to make something that is three-dimensional, something that is interactive. So I thought I'd show you guys kind of my thought process as I go along and make these cards. I took my inspiration from the images themselves, so immediately when I saw the yarn and the knitting there, I immediately thought, you know what, I can include some yarn and knitting elements into this image. Same thing with the other one where they're hugging each other in the cold, in the snow with the leaf. I thought, I bet I can do something with that leaf and make a card that opens up to show them hiding under the leaves. And how cute is that for little mice to be hiding under the leaves? Using my Copic markers here to color. I don't often use Copic markers just because watercoloring is faster and I am lazy, but I was kind of in a Copic coloring mood today. I am not a great Copic colorer, but these stamps work particularly well for Copic coloring because of the detailed images. So you can see there that the shadows are kind of built into the stamp. So if you look closely, the spots where they're kind of like dots and darker areas, you know that that's where you're going to put your darker colors. The spots where it's lighter, that's where you're going to put your lighter colors. And then in between, you're just going to use an in-between color to join those two together. So it makes it really easy if you're not somebody who's great at knowing what to do. Just go ahead and pick some Copics from the same color family, a dark, a medium, and a light shade. And the stamp basically does all the work for you because the shading is already on there. I used a metallic gel pen, jelly roll pen, to make the knitting needles there. It's a little hard to see on the screen, but they do shimmer and shine, so they do stand out a bit. I used some yarn that I had to make the yarn for the stamp, and I used the color pattern of the yarn to make the color pattern of the knitting, so I thought those went well together. So I went ahead and made sure that those matched. Now, if I'd used the yarn as is, it would have been too thick to use on this card. It just would have overpowered it. So I actually took the yarn apart, and this is like a 3-ply, 4-ply yarn. I can't quite remember. But I broke it down so that I only used one strand of the yarn. And that was the right size for me. And I cut it up so that I could actually match the colors of the yarn where the colors of the coloring are that I did on the paper. So I want to kind of match up where, like I made a red strand or an orange strand. I then went ahead and used my yarn to do that. I'm using a poking hole here to make the holes where I'm going to string the yarn. A lot of gem pickers have a hole puncher on the other end. That's not what I'm using here, but if you're trying to find kind of a little hole puncher, a lot of them do have that on the end, so that can be useful. I'm just going through and I'm stringing the yarn. I am not careful, I am not neat, and the back doesn't really matter anyway, but I was just able to pull those through. Even though I didn't have a needle, I kind of just used the whole poker there to kind of just poke the yarn through the hole. Now here I'm trying to match up the strands that the little mouse is knitting with explicitly with the yarn that I have. So I'm making sure to match the colors that I colored. In hindsight, I could have done this the opposite way around and then colored the strands based on the yarn that I had used, but this worked fine too. Now, something you may know about me is that I am not somebody who plans out my cards ahead of time. I'm kind of fly by the seat of my pants, which sometimes leads to me making decisions that kind of come back to bite me in the butt, where I could have made my life a little easier to begin with. And this is one of those instances because I was like, you know what, I need to do the background on this image, and actually now it's going to be really hard to do that now that I've already made my image. So I went ahead and I made a mask, and it does make it a little harder because the yarn is already on there, so the mask doesn't stay on quite as nice as I would have, so I'm not able to get quite as close to the edges of the stamp. So you'll see that I then go in with a little tiny blending brush to try and blend the images there. But I just went ahead and I cut a mask, and I'm just going to put that over the image, and then I'm going to do some ink blending. So I go ahead and use some distress inks to do that, and then I use some gold splatter watercolor as well to give it a little bit more dimension and shine. It's a little hard to see on the card, but in order to make the images come alive a little bit more, I did use some gel glaze pens on the eyes, some highlights, and I think that just brings that out a bit more. So I'm just popping this up on some foam tape, and that's basically my card finished. I do go ahead and add an interior sentiment, and I debated a little bit on which sentiments I wanted to use. I went with sending warm birthday wishes, and then I decided that I did want a little sentiment on the front, but because I had the sentiment on the inside, I kind of wasn't sure what I wanted to do for the front, so then I ended up using a sentiment that says, you. So this could be a card for somebody's birthday who's far away. I just thought it needed a little bit more on the front of the card. So what do you guys think? I think that the yarn gives it a nice little effect, kind of 3D, and so I thought that was a nice little touch, and kind of makes the card a little bit more than just a one-layer card. So it is a one-layer card, but it has some of 3D effect. It sort of reminded me of those little children's books, like where you can like kind of pet the bunny's tail and it's fuzzy and things like that. So I thought this was a kind of a fun card. It would be a fun card for maybe a little kid who's far away and can kind of feel that yarn and kind of play with that. Now moving on to my next card, I knew I wanted to do a wood background. And this was a piece of textured paper that I already had, but Spellbinders does make a very nice wood grain kind of background. I had this paper in my stash, so I thought it'd be good to use it up. I did use some of the lunar paste, Simon Hurley lunar paste there in Traffic Jam, I think it's called, Traffic Cone. And that gave it a little bit more dimension, and it really brings out kind of the rings of the wood grain paper. Now I cut out the central image of my card here, and I'm just going over it with the black pen just so that the edges aren't white and so that they blend in a little bit more with the card base. This piece of paper that I am watercoloring on, kind of fall-themed colors, is also from Spellbinders. This is from their Serenade of Autumn release, and I thought because I want these mice to be kind of surrounded by leaves and kind of be peeking out from the leaves, that this piece of paper would be perfect to kind of create an opening door flap. Now, unfortunately, when I'm done with this, you'll see that it doesn't actually show up that much, but I still needed a piece of paper to use as the background. So I'm not unhappy that I use this. I just wish, I could have saved this paper for something a little bit more special because it ends up not being seen as much. Now, I used some leaves that I had left over from when I was making a fall wreath. And I take the stems off so that they are a little bit more malleable and that they don't stick out too much when I put them on the card, because otherwise they would have been a little too stiff. But these leaves are very inexpensive. I got it like a big branch for $1.25, and I thought they'd be great for crafting projects as well. So you can see that they do kind of cover up that front panel there a little bit more than I would have wanted, but again, I needed something to cover up that front panel so that when I open it up, those leaves, you can kind of see the mice peeking out there, but the front panel ends up being kind of covered. I cut that panel down to size and split it in two, and I'm just going to kind of make a hinge using my scoreboard there so that the doors kind of flap open. And then I'm going to attach the leaves to those doors that I kind of made there, and you can kind of see how it opens up. And I did want the little mice to be able to kind of peek through, and so that you could still see their eyes kind of peeking through and kind of create some interest when you're looking at the card, and you have a little curiosity about like what exactly is behind here. I realized after the fact that when you open this card up, of course, you're going to see the white inside of that card base. So in hindsight, I probably should have just watercolored this when I was watercoloring the front, but I didn't, so I'm just going to use some Distress inks and blend them together. And unfortunately, my mustard seed ink there was very wet and very juicy ink pad, so it did come out a little bit stronger than I would have wanted, but in the end it's all fine. And again, it's on the inside, it's not really going to be seen. I'm just doing this so that it looks a little bit more finished and polished when the card is opened up. I'm just gluing those leaves down, and the glue did kind of come through a little bit, but don't worry about that because when it dries it's completely clear. This is art glitter glue that I'm using, and I just had to put some heavy things down on it to kind of hold it in place because the leaves had kind of a tendency to curl up, but in the end, when it was all done and dried, I think it looked really nice. So there you can see as it opens up, you see the little mouse there. I don't know if I mentioned that I propped the mouse up on some foam tape, again, to just give it some more dimension. Now I'm going ahead and I'm putting that on a card base so that it kind of opens up two ways. It opens up in the front, side by side like that, so that you can see the mouse underneath, and then you open up the card from the top to the bottom to get the greeting. For my greeting, I chose "The Snuggle is Real." I thought that was such a cute sentiment, and maybe a good one to give to somebody that you are in a relationship with, or maybe somebody who's kind of struggling and needs a hug. And I thought that was just such a cute little thing, and these little mice are just so adorable. A side story I forgot to mention, my parents used to go to craft shows. They'd sell the children's banks that they make, and they said that they actually used to be right next door to the house mouse stamps when they were selling at craft shows. So it's kind of funny how, the world comes full circle that way. So here are my finished cards. This is the last one finished. The Snuggle is Real. There it is closed up. You can see the mouse just kind of nestling in, and then it opens up to reveal those mice. And I like how that wood grain background turned out too. So that is the house mouse cards, kind of with 3D elements. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next time.